Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy and coping well in these unprecedented times we call the new normal. Today's webinar is one step to ease out your challenges during these times, and it is titled as Redefining Customer Onboarding in the New Normal. I'm Ruchika Srivastav, and I shall be your host and the coordinator for this webinar today. Our speakers today are Mr. Sachin Seth, partner and fintech leader from Ernst & Young. With over 20 years of experience in the field of technology innovation in banking and financial industry, it would be an understatement to say he is one of the best person to speak on the topic of industry shifts after COVID-19 crisis. Our second speaker is Mr. Ritesh Verma. He heads the global practice for business consulting at Newgen, and through his 18 plus years of experience has been digitally transforming processes for the BFSI sector across the world. His core forte is in the domain of retail and corporate banking in process revamp using BPM RPA analytics for achieving operational efficiencies. At the end of these presentations, we will have the question and answer session. We request you to type your questions in the GoToWebinar question window anytime during the webinar, and I shall take them up at the end of our session. Now I shall hand it over to Mr. Sachin Seth to take the presentation forward.
Yeah, I think now I'm unmuted. Yeah. Okay. So good morning to all of you. This is Sachin Seth here. Look forward to have engaging discussion with you on this webinar. So as Ruchika mentioned, I think these are unusual times, and I hope everybody is keeping safe. But I think this is also time wherein we need to rediscover ourselves, our businesses, and see that how we basically come back to the new normal situation as and when situation improves and allows us to basically start doing activities in a fashion which is becoming a more and more basically a new kind of environment, right? So in this webinar, I'll probably about 20, 25, 30 minutes, I'll talk about some of the point of views about, in this scenario, which is unprecedented, as well as I would say, from a perspective of predictability, I think nobody would have predicted current scenario. So obviously every business is getting disrupted today, and it's not a question of disruption by each other, it's also disruption which is happening because of the limitations what we have in the current scenario, right? Now there's a silver lining to this. So from digital and technology perspective, if you ask me, I think while on the one side we have a lot of pessimism, you have a lot of challenges in the business and day-to-day running of the operations, the positive side is that, or the silver lining is that there is going to be tremendous changes in the way organizations were working, which would have taken them 2 to 3 years to make changes. But probably because of this, there will be a fast tracking of consumer behavior, our own user behavior, at the same time from the way how industry is operating as an ecosystem. Now we have two options. I mean, either we look at this current situation and try to cope up with it, to manage our organizations, our teams, our customers, etc. But I think, as somebody has said, that you never let a crisis go waste. So I think I would be more optimistic on this situation and say that why not we utilize this crisis towards looking at our processes and systems wherein we are able to enhance it towards the better consumer experience. At the same time, look at more and more efficiencies to be brought in the normal course, which would have been very difficult to do, right? So going a little bit forward and deeper into the discussion, let me just go to the specifics of what we are talking about today. So I'm on my slide number 1. So as all of you belong to retail or banking community, I mean, the point I wanted to make that as if we didn't have, we had lesser challenges, that this is one of the bigger challenges again has been thrown to all of us. So, which means that, I mean, challenges has been a part of life as far as banking is concerned. And I think even if this crisis had not come 2 months back, there were a lot of other challenges people were grappling with, which I'll talk about some of them. And obviously, this has really, I would say, cascaded, or this has really taken it to the next level in terms of, looking at how people can really cope up with, or how people respond to it, right? So, if you look at some of the challenges, just wanted to talk about to set the context, and obviously then we'll get into the specifics of the solution mode and point of views. So already I believe, I mean, most of us or most of you were facing challenges which were basically around, getting displaced by big tech companies, social media companies, as well as startups. So there were different wars going on in the industry already. There is a certain set of business which has already started moving, and primary reason for that business to move out or basically get redesigned in the whole scenario of the banking, it was primarily about customer touch point, visibility, customer experience, and also basically the efficiency. Now, even before, I mean, I would say pre-COVID, that was a scenario. So naturally, post-COVID, that becomes even much more relevant to talk about it, because it's impacting not only the banks, big banks, or the traditional banks, it is also impacting the fintechs equally. Though it is obviously the scale is lesser, so the impact is also lesser, right? So, but definitely already there has been a lot of challenges which are already there, and I guess this has further added to the complexity, right? So, and even if you look at, I mean, a lot of transition has already happened in terms of how banking operations or financial services operations are running, whether it is in terms of basically, onboarding the customer, engaging with the customer, managing the transactions of the customers, and there have been a lot of digital centric companies have been born. Native digital companies have been born in last couple of years in every geography in across Asia Pacific, and that has basically led to quite a bit of realignment of the business models already. So let's see where it takes us in the current situation, and how do we really look at this in the current scenario. So just adding into, I mean, as far as the intermediation is also concerned, banks traditionally has been the center of gravity for all the transactions happening in the financial services space. But as we are seeing that regulators have been, opening up to the idea of companies having peer-to-peer transactions, or people having, like even case of, let's say, many platforms which have been developed in this part of the world, or utilizing the infrastructure layer, which is a common layer, which is like a layer which is hidden below a particular fintech or particular organization, like a UPI layer in India, or maybe other payments layers. So more and more changes are happening towards that. So the role of banks itself is getting a bit, questioned, that what the value is being added. Is it becoming a more of a commodity player, right? So from that perspective, it becomes all the more important to see that how do we have our customers stick to us, how those customers in current times we are able to serve them, and then obviously it becomes a sticky point for the customers for the future as well, right? So with this, let's see how the scenario is going to emerge in the post-COVID era. So before I get into the specifics, and these are some of the articles picked up from news which is happening across the world, but the key thing which I want to talk about from UI perspective is that we are looking at this as a now, next, and beyond kind of a situation. When I say now, means now it all started somewhere December, January, or probably early February was basically a bit more awareness about it. I think from 1st March onwards, it's all over the place. So I think till end of March, or probably up to 15th of April in some organizations' case, we were in the now situation. So when I say now situation, that people are still figuring it out what it is. Every country had its own situation about social distancing, lockdown, banking operating in a certain window, certain number of people only can support it, certain kind of services can be provided. So that all was basically part of the now scenario, which means that what we do now, how do we react to it, how do we basically address this situation, how we continue to serve our customers, right? I think from 15th of April onwards, we have moved to the next era, which means that practically people have realized, and and reconcile to the fact that it's here to stay for some time. Now, the sometime could mean different to different people for different geography because the impact is different everywhere. And so it could be 2 months for some countries, for some organizations, it could be 6 months for some countries, some organizations, this could be year plus for some of the other people. Why I'm saying that? Because naturally it all depends on how the savviness or digital adoption has happened within a country in the current scheme of things. And as we are talking to people from all over Asia Pacific here, it's not that it's a one size is fitting everything. There are countries, there are regulators who had already encouraged kind of digital adoption and digital customer onboarding, etc. So naturally, there the impact is a bit less. And even in the current era of social distancing, people are able to get onboarded, or people are able to conduct the transactions with a no touch kind of or minimal touch kind of a scenario, right? Now, if you look at what's the current point of view from different thought leaders globally, everybody's talking about how the consumer behavior will change post COVID-19, because people are going through a very different experience what they have not seen in the past, and naturally this will take them much closer to basically what their ability to sustain such kind of scenario is in future. And banking is no different, because banking is very much integral part of the day-to-day life of all the consumers or the customers we are dealing with, right? Second point is also provides the opportunity to go digital in a bigger way. As I mentioned, in our opinion, I think it could be about 2 to 3 years of fast tracking. So what we were probably looking at as an industry, that what could be approved by regulators, what could be adopted by consumers, what could be built as a technology or a platform, probably 2 years later. And as I know, most of you have been heavily investing into the technology and the digital already. There are so much things are happening, but then we always talked about how the adoption is so low, how people still love to come to the branches, how still people are willing, talking to the call centers, and people are utilizing the ATMs and whatnot, right? And there were, many countries where people are still providing services to customers in physical mode as much as they can, to keep the customer stickiness and provide a differentiated experience. But today, if you ask me, the behavior has completely changed. The same set of personal banking, private banking scenarios wherein people were being provided a pick up from home or meet at home kind of services by different banking services which were privileged kind of services. Today, practically you would not find a customer who would like to meet you, or you would like to meet your relationship manager. Everybody is looking for a tool, whether it's onboarding or engaging or transactions to be done by a mobile or a web device. People are not interested in meeting anymore. And I'm sure in many countries, when I've spoken to customers, it has become more and more concern area for the people who are in the higher age bracket, say upwards of 50, 55, 60, where the impact of COVID on their health could be much more. So people, and those are the set of people many times are the real big customers, HNIs, or the wealthy customers, because they have already reached a certain stage in their career or life, and they already have the they become the profitable customers for the bank, right? So this behavior change will also lead for many of them not to come back to the bank branches for even next couple of months, or may come only once in a while. And because to keep the level of health awareness, what they have already acquired in this current scenario. So definitely that is something which is going to impact as a bank our business a lot, and I guess that is something which is here to stay. So if people are thinking that once the lockdowns are open or curfews are gone, or governments are just allowing everybody to operate normally, I think differently, that it will be customers who will decide that how they would like to engage with a service provider like a bank compared to what governments will typically end up doing. Because today also many of the countries banks are operating, but people are practically not going there because of their own health protection reasons, right? And in this case, I think while the customer is with you, engaging with customer on a platform to do the digital banking kind of services is very much important and relevant. But I think the most important thing becomes is that how do you onboard the customer? How do you find new customer to onboard? And that's, I think, the toughest task all of us have to tackle. So that's why we are probably covering in this seminar a little bit more about that. So as we move forward, I think we'll be focusing more on that. Yeah. So if you look at it, what kind of push will happen towards the digital is just covered here in a couple of pillars what we have crafted. Like I said, now, next, and beyond. So obviously now part is more or less everybody's looking at next, what's next, how can I adopt to next faster, whether it's a bank or whether it's a customer or whether it's any of the financial services player. And beyond, obviously, we still need to figure out that what's the real impact, what's the real consumer behavior which will emerge, how we are going to adapt our systems to cope up with that. And I think that's the time probably required to realign the business strategy along with digital and technology strategy to see that how that triangle emerges, and basically that is becoming a competitive scenario, or the, I would say, it's a competitive advantage or disadvantage that may become to most of the players depending on how they are able to address it in the beyond scenario. Okay, so if you look at it, COVID-19 crisis, what it has led to, I mean, obviously there is a slowdown expected. Naturally, it will impact the banking business as well, because banking is, as I said, center of the gravity of most of the economy. General economic decline in most of the countries because the economic activity is at a standstill. Temporary shutdown of businesses, but for long term, I think many of the people assume it will be for a week or two. I think it's prolonging. It's going to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and I think still there is hardly any country which can say that they have been able to find a way to come back to a normal situation. And as I said, consumer self-isolation itself is a big area wherein we are right now. We are only looking at how the governments or how the social ecosystem is basically pushing us to do the social distancing, but self-decided social distancing or self-practice social distancing will also become a big norm going forward a couple of months from now when we come to the normal scenario or so-called beyond scenario, right? Now, surge in digital crime, that's another area. I think the criminals always find ways to make good for themselves in these times, because when people are busy with their challenges, crisis. So I think that has also gone up, but obviously that's not the topic of the discussion today, so I'm not going to spend too much of time on it. But definitely there are significant amount of cases has been reported in every country wherein people are trying to utilize this situation, and if the systems are not robust, not fully integrated, if there are gaps, then how do we basically use those systems? That's the kind of thinking most of the cyber crime or cyber people who are basically driving this kind of activity in the market, right? So from this perspective, you see, new customer acquisition is one of the top priority, because otherwise what we have obviously is a split between all of us. So how do we really sustain our business? And there is a new workforce which will come into picture in some time. They obviously would like to have the systems or the onboarding processes wherein they are able to have a completely no touch or low touch kind of scenario. Paperwork has now become a distant dream. People are not even willing to touch the currency, forget about a paper. So that's becoming a completely no. And I'm sure while regulators in most of the countries across Asia Pacific have been very progressive, but I guess slowly things are becoming that even that today the regulators are issuing the orders on digital platforms or using digital means. So practically we can assume safely that when the things started becoming normal, I think there will be certain concessions given by regulators to take away the paper out of the system. And I guess it will push all of us basically to see that what was mandatory could become basically just for the records and may not be immediate requirement. And naturally, it's all about basically getting the data right. It's all about getting the customer demographics right and seeing that the frauds part or the KYC part is taken care. But it may not be the wish of the people to really touch the paper going forward. Right now, from that perspective, if you look at even workforce, there's going to be tremendous amount of changes. Remote workforce is becoming a norm. Most of the banks I know are operating 80 to 90% manpower remotely. Everything has actually moved remotely except the branch operations, which also has been leaned down in most of the countries. And naturally, that's not sufficient to sustain the business going forward. But I think remote access, remote work, remote relationship management, remote selling, remote servicing will become a lot more prevalent and adaptable, or I would say acceptable to the people in the going forward in the times. Process technology part, as I just mentioned, and I think I don't need to really talk about it a lot more, but it's basically that everything which is we are going to look at will have an underlying layer of the process and technology, more of technology, And I think any technology which is worth its salt and which can be utilized in the industry would be adopted by the people, because that's the only thing which has helped people to sustain and survive in the current scenario. As I mentioned, regulatory part, obviously regulatory and compliant part is basically remains one of the key point of views which needs to be looked at, how regulators are going to respond. But I guess at this moment there has been quite a positivity, and there have been concessions are being made for in different parts of the world, and I guess that's what is going to be basically the going forward approach as well. Last, as I mentioned about the cyber attacks, as we move more and more digital, more digital platforms, we need to have secure platforms. We need to have fully integrated platforms. We need to have as much as STP process. So basically, to see that the gaps are minimal, and there are chances of internal or external frauds become minimal. Yeah. So that's what I just wanted to lay it out in detail. But happy to answer questions when the question answer round comes subsequently. So from this perspective, if you see what are the basically if we detail out what would be the challenges which we look at going forward, unavailability of the branch staff, obviously, because everybody is concerned about their health, and everybody is concerned about that they don't become the source of infection to others. So branch staff will continue to be a challenge, and by voluntarily, or by the regulator point of view or government's point of view. As I mentioned, restricted field movement will happen. Social distancing will become practically a norm going forward. Cash management challenges will also always be there, and there have been cases where ATMs have become the source of infection to a lot of people, and that's also becoming a big issue. So the adoption of digital will become a lot more, because there's hardly any choice left, right? And looking at leads of customer, engaging with customers, all these things will become very, I think, different in the new normal. And even servicing is going to become very different. Today itself, if you see call center itself, it's a human operation which is impacted severely. So chatbots or the other tools have become a lot more prevalent. Self-service is becoming more prevalent. So most of the time when we thought about Uber or any other platform, we thought about service as service which has to be done by us. And obviously, there is assurance of service on the backside, right? I think all of us will need to come into that era that we need to provide assurance of service, and the tools of services has to be chosen by customer, and there has to be basically a self-service will become a lot more prevalent, and obviously regulators will also, I'm sure, look at that scenario. So with this, I guess, there's a need of basically having an end-to-end STP journeys, which can help customers onboard, which can help customer, look at provide all the documentation, data. Data can be pulled out from relevant sources, and basically the customer can have a seamless onboarding. So I think while we do have customers which are already adapting to basically the current situation of, how do they adopt digital in your current tools or services or platforms which you're providing, but what about the new customers? What about the new transactions they want to initiate? What about the remittances they want to do for procuring certain things from business perspective? Or what about they would like to send their kids to abroad for education, and how do you tap them at this moment, because as the colleges season is opening up for the foreign education? So again, those are the things. If they don't have a bank account for their son or kid or daughter, how would you engage with them today? Because physically, is a big challenge to do that, right? So all those kind of things will just the use case examples, but I guess there are a lot more like that, and I guess that's where the need of the complete online platform or STP platform comes into picture, where you are able to engage with customers seamlessly and provide them experience which is within the new normal, which is what we are all looking at, right? And obviously, the other points are basically in terms of, to run the business, you need to have the consistent number of new customers acquisitions happening. There has to be, lead conversion, customer queries to be resolved. How do we look at slippages of, support which we are providing? So with this, if you look at it, what could be the way forward, as I mentioned? So looking at application, upload, verification, and closure, I think these are the four main steps as we look at customer onboarding. And I think all four steps will go through its own changes. Typically, regulators or the service providers have been open to digital, but like I said, it was always a optional stuff. There was always something to back it up. But in today's scenario, it's becoming very, very different, and people are going to basically adopt to 100% digital. So with this, I mean, I'll skip this slide. Probably this is, I think, very well known to all of you that, this was the traditional way. I think probably hardly anybody is doing the traditional way except for a set of customers who are completely into the bottom of the pyramid or completely into the high, in the upper segment, wherein people need personalized service. So people have been partially digital for quite some time. But if you say today that the need is basically to become 100% digital, right? So from this point of view, what exactly we are going to look forward to? So obviously different countries will have a different way to adapt to it. But if you look at automating document validation and the digital verification becomes a key because human interventions are going to go out or become very less. Data extraction using OCR, ICR capabilities are becoming, it was always there, but the way it was being used always as something which is additional tool, and subsequently there were backups there in the system to see that things are working perfectly, if there are any physical notations or if there are any forms which are physically filled, etc. But I guess we need to all standardize stuff, and I think OCR, ICR will become very, very relevant. E-signing has been there, but it is by choice, by only few have been using it. But I think that becomes a very, very important point of view to look at how do we have customers onboarded electronically using the e-signing of the document as part of the regulatory and legal process. Acquisition of customers, again, digitally using video on calls. Many countries have done, sharing products on call, providing services on call using the digital tools, etc. So that is all basically, going to become a lot more, prevalent. And then mobility, cloud-based solutions, geotagging, live photographs, image-based document recognition. I think everywhere. I mean, I think in Japan there are already things are happening. In ATM itself, people can go. There is image-based recognition. People can open the. There are places already. Some waivers have happened for uploading of document is good enough at this moment. Physical documents are not required. But I guess this will all become a new normal as we move forward in the beyond kind of a scenario. Right? Yeah. So with this, just wanted to recap that the discussion what we had. Basically, if you look at it. Productivity point of view, optimization of the route for the people when they come back to the physical engagement scenario. Right now, it's in the social distancing scenario. Using it for the places, digital onboarding, wherein bandwidth is a challenge, which has been a big issue for some of the countries, and people have always cited that as one of the reasons for digital onboarding adoption being low. Remote working monitoring, I think everybody has learned it, whether person is literate, highly literate, or from any of the segments. Geo-fencing, geo-marketing, geo-advertising, I think this will become again an interesting phenomena because physical contact will reduce. So that will definitely lead to technologically, how do you trace the person, how do you engage with the person, how do you market your products to person, and how do you basically onboard the person. That becomes a lot more prevalent, right? So with this, I just wanted to give one small point to quote that, and then I will hand it over to Ritesh from Newgen to talk about a lot more in detail for the solutions. That today's era is like, basically, let me give you a small joke and to make them, environment a bit lighter. So there's a say that there were two people going to jungle, and one of them said, "Let me wear better shoes, right? We are going to jungle, we are going to forest, and we may come across a tiger. So we need to wear good shoes." So the other friend said that, "Why do you want to wear shoes, right? I mean, good shoes. If tiger comes anyway, you won't be able to beat the tiger." So the first friend said, "I don't have to beat the tiger. I have to beat you." Okay. So if in a context of today's COVID situation, while the purpose is to make everyone to bring to the same level, but it will not happen. So this is also a situation for many of you to adopt digital because there is a capacity of IT, there's a capacity of your business people free. Typically in the normal era, you never have the enough capacity to do IT projects right on right time to be able to deliver and have right resources to do it. But in today's era, if you have to beat the, if you have to beat the others and fight the tiger, or basically save yourself or improve yourself as far as your business is concerned, I think it is a right opportunity, and to look at this time as the best time to run the digital and IT projects and become more and more, I would say, competitive in your market, because there will be situations wherein not everybody will be able to do it, and it takes a lot to be a leader in the market. So I think it makes sense to really wear those shoes and be in the jungle so that you are able to beat others, because it's all about giving the better customer experience and having a customer to basically engage with you vis-a-vis somebody else. Yeah. So with this, I will hand over to Ritesh to talk about the specifics of the solution, and happy to be engaged post his presentation on any questions which you may have. Yeah. Yeah. So Ruchika, thank you so much, and you could pass on the presentation control to Ritesh, please.
Sure, Sachin. Ritesh, are you able to access the presentation?
Hello.
Yes, Ritesh, we can hear you, but can't see your screen.
Okay, I'll kind of just.
Yeah,
Is it
that's
visible
fine.
now?
Yes.
So thank you, Sachin, for such an elaborate discussions around the same and setting the context. You're correct that there's too much of emphasis on digital onboarding in today's times, and it's becoming more and more important. So, from an overall perspective, I'll just take on the cue from there and start the discussions. So, basically, let's start talking about the elephants in the room. The first elephant is the regulatory compliance. So, much of these things have been kind of stopped or hampered from a digital onboarding perspective due to the regulatory compliance. And there has traditionally been a war between the regulatory and the uh, fintechs. So the fintech and the regulatory war, the regtech war that we normally talk about, is much more evident over here. So we agree that the KYC and AML requirements force the banks to be cautious, but ultimately cautious to an extent that the result is long paper forms, piles of documentation, days of processing, and a frustrating experience. So, as Sachin talked about, the what should be a normal process, a quick process, finally turns out to be a painstaking, frustrating experience for the customer, leading neither the bank nor the customer anywhere. What we've also noticed is that from an overall perspective, the what Brett King talks about, it's all about the experience. Either the banks remove friction or someone else would. And I think it's most evident in today's times where we are talking about branches being literally shut down in many countries. The The relationship managers are reachable, but reachable to do very little from an overall experience. And the regulatory framework is also creating a havoc for the banks for onboarding new customers. So, in this overall perspective, what we see is that what's hampering a truly digital bank is poor cross channel experience. Does the experience remain to be the same as a portal to an app, to a chatbot, to a social interaction, or maybe through a walk in customer at a later point of time when things get back to normal? Are the front end and the back end fully integrated so that there are no broken processes? What it basically means that people or banks have created fabulous websites for trying to onboard the customer, which takes the application but haven't looped it back in into the backend operations processes, which creates a problem with the experience overall, adherence to compliance. What we've noticed is that multiple times the banks have paid hefty amounts as penalties for non-adherence to compliance. And finally, in the overall experience, we don't track the abandonment from one channel to another and the reason for abandonment, leading to potential customers that would have been lost in the overall journey. So, with all these things into perspective, the things and the trends in the new normal, these issues are going to be further highlighted. They are going to be further changed. The B2C marketing experts found that internet searches for online account opening have increased significantly in the last month itself. And it's not just an Indian phenomena or an African phenomena or an APAC phenomena, it's a global phenomena. Traditionally, banks were structured around human interactions, which basically means that if you want to open an account, please come to my office, come to my branch, have a cup of tea with me. And then one of my relationship managers would help you fill a form. Once the form has been filled in, please sign it in front of me so that I can do a KYC. And once it has been submitted, the physical form now flows back to the backend for an account opening. This did have the personal touch to it, however, missed on the overall concept of millennials now no longer going to branches at all and wanting to do anything and everything out of the internet. Today, it becomes the necessity in the new normal. So, from an overall perspective, if we look at it, what we notice is that things are bound to change in the new normal. Let's kind of look at an overall example to kind of take it forward from here. So, if we look at the example, what we notice is that um,
Hi, Ritesh. We are not able to see your screen.
yeah, is it
Yeah.
visible now? Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
it is.
So, what we notice is that 40% of the customers prefer online for banking services. However, less than 10% of the sales happen digitally in retail banking. 85% of the prospects who initially visit the bank fail to convert an actual bank customer. And these trends, as I said, would continue in the new normal. Let's get into what is hampering the overall experience from a digital age customer onboarding perspective. So, if we look at a digital journey of a customer, the customer logs in into a website or a mobile app, uploads documents if required. Documents data is extracted automatically out of the documents. Customer fills up the online form, whatever is required, takes a selfie, which basically means facial recognition, matching it against your social security card, automated data extraction, and maybe a video conferencing with the backend team, just like the way that you did in branches to prove that you're alive and kicking. The customer funds his online accounts using an e-wallet or something. And finally, the customer is onboarded, receives a digital credit card or a debit card, and takes it forward from there. Now let's move to a real life example, how it is done and where it is done. Let's meet Sarah. Now Sarah is a millennial, like probably most of us, decides to transact digitally, probably hasn't visited a bank branch for ages, highly aware of her options, demands the same digital experience from banks as experience from other walks of life. So, in today's times, we are all exposed to Google, Amazon, and guys like that, which are fabulous marketing companies. And the experience which we expect into our day to day transactions is similar to what we kind of expect from Amazon and Google's. Intolerant of transactional hassles and impulsive. So these are all traits that we can relate to the new generation, and we can all kind of appreciate where they're coming from. Sarah ideally is a customer for yourself, but you have to deal with all the tantrums that come along with those. So if we don't kind of onboard Sarah within minutes, we'd probably lose her to digital competitions. And I think that's the biggest worry that is bothering most of our uh, customers and the banks today. So in 30 minutes, if we can onboard her, have a working uh, account, I think things are done, maybe less than 30 minutes in certain countries. So let's see how the journey takes part over here. So what we've noticed is that while referring to any banking or a new banking transaction or a new banking relationship, people contact their friends and family and compare online before applying. So the concept of being a sticky customer probably doesn't exist for now. So she plans to open up a savings account and she contacts you online. Maybe while kind of doing all this, she gets on to a Twitter account and tell us for more information about the savings account. Being a digitally savvy bank, the Twitter handle automatically gets to this and maybe redirects her to a chatbot, which can now take it forward, or maybe redirects her to a website address where she can fill up a form online. So, what you're doing in effect in the background is sensing incoming communication that is coming through various handles and Facebooks and other things. You're doing a context analysis, which basically means that you're understanding whether it is a complaint, a request for something new, or something which has to be kind of catered to in real urgency. Highlighting that it's a request for a new application, you give a personalized request to Sarah, and she can now have a personalized link taking her forward, or maybe she can now go to a branch and take things. In the current situation, it's most likely that she would opt for a portal which can help her select what kind of information she wants while she sits at home, chooses the product that she wants to apply to, and takes it forward. She uploads her documents, say the ID card, the passport, which does an extraction of the documents, classification of the documents, and auto validation that it's a valid document and take it forward. So there's no human intervention for now while all these things are being done and the operations are being taken care of in an auto mode. Sarah uploads relevant documents, takes a selfie with the ID proof, which is now validated, and the first level of KYC is done. She completes her application form on mobile. Maybe there's a silent AML check in the backend, the OFAC check, the blacklist check, and others are done online. And the e-signatures are matched and validated. And auto funding using cards and wallets is done, and Sarah is good to go. So she is a real time status is there with her. She gets her all the details, and she is welcomed as a new customer within minutes. She gets her instant onboarding, digital welcome kit, cross sell and upsell offers on the same picture, so as to say. Moving on, I just hope life was so simple and we can't appreciate life more than in current times. So, Murphy's Law always strikes when you need it the least, which basically means that Sarah initiates the application on the tablet. However, she gets distracted and she wants to watch a new movie on Netflix, goes there, watches the movie, and comes back to kind of fill out the details on the laptop, gets distracted again, and completes it on the mobile. So the omni-channel experience kind of makes the life much more simpler for Sarah, and she can resume the application from wherever she left last. Sarah is a good citizen and is not blacklisted by any agency, but she doesn't have all the documents that may be required to kind of open up the account, which basically means that she can now get into a real life uh, video conferencing with the back office, supports and track her, kind of narrate her story. She'd be consulted through the process. And while all this is happening, you're not abandoning Sarah at any point of time. Sarah feels served and is a happy customer. In fact, going forward, she can become an advocate for you for any references that can get onto, for any cross sell and upsell that may happen. So, in an overall journey, what we notice is that through the onboarding application, you're digitizing things, you're enabling end to end customer for seamless and personalized communication, which finally enables lower attrition, reduced onboarding cost, better transparency and compliance, and higher conversion rates. So it's a win win situation for both the customer as well as the bank in order to kind of be served and serve the customer in the best possible way, especially in these times where the touch of paper as well as customer becomes a challenge. So if we look at the total onboarding framework, we notice that through multiple channels of initiation, information gathering, selecting which product to work around, doing a backend online check on customers and other data, we can kind of make this experience seamless and straight through, as is required by the banks in today's times. And what separates Newgen from the others is the entire set of tools, frameworks, and processes required for doing it to be configured on the Newgen platform. What it also does is bring the silos of experience onto one platform so that you can work around it in the best possible manner. Finally, we all hope this was interesting, and we all hope to kind of get the Newgen as partner of choice for yourself in times to come. Thank you. And Ruchika, over to you for taking to the next section of question and answers.
Thank you, Ritesh. So the first question today is for Sachin. So after the present situation, how is the BFS industry seeing the onboarding process as a whole?
Sure. Thank you so much for this question. And so, as I mentioned in my parts of my presentation, the fundamentals will be basically it should be low touch or no touch. It should be straight through processing because onboarding does not really add value to any customer. So if you look at from customer's point of view, onboarding is a basic need which needs to be fulfilled for customer to become a your end consumer for a services or you to become customers service provider. So it doesn't add any value to any side. It is primarily a regulatory and compliance need which is to be taken care. So naturally, wherever there is a less value addition happening or the negligible value addition happening in the current situation, people have been challenging it, and I think there are people are finding various frugal ways to really overcome that. So while the answer may not fit to all geographies because as we have customers of all geographies or bankers of all geographies on this call from Asia Pacific. But like I would say in India, if you see currently we in some of the industry like SEBI had or allowed the video based KYC. We used to have Aadhaar based KYC which went through a little bit of a challenges, and when the Aadhaar based KYC was relevant and prevalent, it was having 100% onboarding possible in India. India is still just possible for the banks because they have certain ways to basically comply to the UDI rules with various technical measures in case of basically retail customers. Obviously, when the customers become corporate customers or the SME customers, there is a slightly different rules which all follow. But if you look at the complete Southeast Asia or Asia Pacific, obviously certain geographies things are still evolving. They are adopting from other developed countries or other places, and I'm sure Singapore is quite ahead already. So I would say, just to summarize what I said in the beginning, it will be different for every country based on the regulation, based on the risk, based on the kind of clientele. But whatever it is today, if I can safely say that there will be half of the involvement of manual processes, it won't be a overstatement. So it can be anywhere from 50% to 100% digitization which will happen. Wherever there's 20%, it become 50%, whereas 50% becomes 75, whereas maybe 60 there's already will become 100. But yes, everybody will move a notch above. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Ritesh. What difference have you observed on country basis in the term of customer onboarding processes?
So, if we look at it like the marketing gurus predict, we are getting a lot of queries around onboarding customers digitally. And as I mentioned, it's not just a localized phenomena in a country or a geography. It seems to be a global phenomena. So if you look at the onboarding experience as is being kind of expected, the mature countries which are adept to cloud and other infrastructure related challenges are really being taken care of. They are able to kind of get onto it in a much faster way. For example, a lot of open queries are from Philippines, from South Africa, from the Middle East on how we can now integrate the processes that used to be done physically into the onboarding. And it's not just retail, from SME customer onboarding perspective, from corporate customer onboarding perspective, we are seeing active challenges being there, and we are working aggressively with multiple banks and financial services across the globe in taking care of the local nuances. Maybe some, what we are also noticing is that some regulatory changes would be there, would make this journey overall much more convenient and much more smoother. So thank you, Ruchika, for the question.
Thank you, Ritesh. I'm afraid we are running out of time, but I guess we can take one more question, which is coming for Sachin. And Sachin, here it goes. What changes do you see in the regulatory framework in terms of customer onboarding?
Again, so first of all, difficult to predict what regulators will think, because so let me just give a premise of how regulators probably think and what makes them adapt to certain situations. So, see, different countries, the risk appetite is different, and the profiling of demographics is different. Also, it also depends on the other peripheral KYC norms or demographical data points. So, if you see some parts of the Southeast Asia, the mobile number or mobile SIM card is available without a KYC. Now, naturally, if you are using a mobile as one of the contact point for the customer, because of financial fraud control, situation or compliance situation, you need to have the validation of the customer. Now, wherever the mobile is already having a KYC, a strong KYC, the chances of digital onboarding and digital KYC becomes very, very much easier for regulators to take a call, because they have a fallback option. Okay, so if the fraud happens or if there is any financial crime happens, how do you contact the customer? How do you identify the genuinity of the identity and the whereabouts of the person, right? But wherever the mobile, which is a primary contact person, tool at this moment, it is not applicable. Naturally, it becomes the responsibility of the financial services companies to see that they have the physical, geotagging, or there is a way to identify the person attached to that mobile, and not only the mobile, the other parameters which are around the person, right? So coming back to this question, that how regulators will look at it or what regulators will give focus to this, let me tell you, this COVID-19 situation has obviously pushed everybody to remote working, including the governments are working remotely from their homes, etc. So everybody has acknowledged the need of giving leeway to provide services and use digital, whether it's a digital document or it's basically a digital video, it's a video or it's anything, a lot more. So I would say everybody will move forward 2 notch above or 3 notch above. Now question is that what is the risk, inherent risk in the country from other KYCs and the behavior of consumers and the fraud situations, and accordingly they will look at it. But yeah, everybody will move forward, and I would say in most of the countries should become completely no touch, and just uploading everything, having a facial recognition or having a video recognition, video time stamping, geotagging, ICR, OCR, all these tools, if you put together, actually you can box the consumer in a particular way and say that yes, I know that who is this consumer, and I know that this consumer lives here and he's contactable here or she's contactable here. As long as that is able to get it done by technology, I'm sure regulators will give it a positive thought.
Great. Thanks, Sachin. Thanks, Ritesh, for all the valuable insights into customer onboarding in the new normal. Thank you to the entire audience for your valuable time and tremendous response. We shall be sending across the presentation and the transcripts for all the questions to you. Goodbye and have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much for participation.